Hey everyone, welcome to PhoneArena's in-depth video review of the Samsung Craft for MetroPCS. It's going for the no-contract price of $299.99. It should be pretty decent when you consider the fact that you don't have to sign any contracts. Now, the biggest thing about this device is the fact that you can tell right now it says 4G right there, so it's the first LTE-enabled device in the country. So we'll check it out and see what it has to offer in terms of features and hardware. For something that's touting its LTE prowess, there's very little to say about its design. It's pretty typical of any other Samsung quick messaging phone out there. First of all, it's a landscape security handset, so it looks familiar from a close distance. The materials that they use is plastic all around the handset. We do like the fact that it has that red polish look to it with the rear, but it does attract a lot of fingerprints and smudges. It's also rather bulky too, and you definitely notice the weight in your hand. Again, it's not the best looking handset that we've seen from Samsung's camp, but definitely looks a lot better than the other devices on MetroPCS's lineup. Easily one of the best things that we love about the Samsung Craft has to be its 3.3-inch AMOLED display. It has WVGA resolution, so that's 480 by 800 pixels, and just like other AMOLED panels out there on the Droid Incredible or something like the Nexus 1, it does produce a lot of rich and saturated colors. And as far as text, since it has a WVGA resolution, it offers a lot of detail, so you're not going to have any issues viewing what's on screen. On top of that, it does have some decent viewing angles, but unfortunately it does suffer outdoors in direct sunlight, much like other AMOLED panels out there. Right below the touchscreen, you have your physical buttons. You have the send, end, and also back. They're flush to the surface, but they're well sized and offer a really good response. On the left-hand side, you just have the micro SD card slot, the voice activation key, the pronounce volume rocker. On the right side, you simply have the two-level shutter key, the micro USB port, the lock-unlock. While on the top, you only have the 3.5mm headset jack, and on the back, you have a 3.2 megapixel autofocus camera with LED flash and self-portrait mirror, the notch there for a speaker, and when you remove the back cover, it's really easy to take it off. It'll give you access to the battery and also the SIM card slot. There's nothing really to scream about with the keyboard in use with the Samsung Craft, just because we've seen this layout used countless times on other Samsung messaging phones. Buttons are flush to the surface, as you can tell. They're all the same size and evenly spaced. We like the fact that there's a dedicated row just for your numbers and also the directional pad here. And after a while using it, it does offer a pretty good response, so we didn't have any issues as far as typing away. The platform experience on the Samsung Craft is pretty ordinary compared to other Samsung messaging phones just because it relies heavily on TouchWiz 2.0. So you have a lot of different widgets you could choose from. You could place onto the 3 different home screens. It gives you that personalized look. The speed overall though is pretty decent. It doesn't blur upon the lines of like some smartphones out there, but it is pretty decent for a feature phone. At the bottom you have this row here for quick access to your dialer. You have one for your contacts, messages, and of course the main menu, which is laid out in a grid-like format and just 2 different ones. Overall, it's simple, straightforward, and again, just pretty much what you expect out of any Samsung feature phone out there. One of the biggest annoyances that we found with the Craft is the fact that pretty much a good majority of all the applications that you see on here, for example, like Loop or even the Metro Navigator, if you click on something, it doesn't launch the application. It's just gonna provide you the link to actually download the application and install it. So it'd have been just nice to have them all preloaded ahead of time. We have no complaints whatsoever with the messaging experience on the Samsung Craft just because the on-screen options are pretty responsive and good. So you have your keypad here. You could even enable T9 for a faster method of inputting text. And of course, the best way is by just using the physical keyboard, which does offer a pretty good experience for anyone who's used any other Samsung devices out there. The email app will work pretty well for most people just because setting it up is pretty simple. You just put in your username and password, no problems whatsoever. Generic accounts are pretty simple to set up, and specific ones will require additional pieces of information. The only gripe that we had is that it doesn't display emails in threaded view, so you're just going to have a long listing. If you're big on social networking or instant messaging, you'll find the application on the Craft to be pretty good just because it aggregates a bunch of different clients from Facebook, Twitter, AOL Instant Messenger, Yahoo Messenger, all to one centralized hub, so you don't have to worry about moving between different applications. Obviously, the biggest thing about the Samsung Craft is its LTE connectivity. Unfortunately, we don't have it around our area here, and it's only available in Las Vegas right now. So we have it connected through Wi-Fi, and from just a quick look, it looks like it might have a pretty good scrolling experience. But the more we got to use the web browser here, it proved to be a little bit more frustrating than anything else. First of all, there's no multi-touch support, so zooming in, you're just gonna have to just keep on double tapping. On top of that, the performance is pretty choppy. At times it'll run really smooth, and then at others it's just gonna be very slow and monotonous. There is kinetic scrolling, but as you can tell right now, it's extremely choppy, even over Wi-Fi. So the experience is pretty much forgettable. Nothing fancy with the music player on the Samsung Craft, just because we've seen it before. It'll display stuff like the album cover, music information, even on-screen controls. We also like the fact that it offers 3 different skins just to give it a personalized touch. As far as the quality from the audio from the speaker, it does produce some weak tones, but luckily it doesn't strain at all. Video playback is more than acceptable on the device. The one we have loaded up on here is encoded in MPEG-4 800 by 480 resolution. At first, when it started loading, it was a little bit stuttery, but after a while, as you can tell, it's pretty smooth. So, pretty good experience overall. You can even put it to full screen mode in landscape, and as you can tell, it's still running fantastic. For those big on taking photos, you'll be happy to find a wide array of options at your disposal with the device. There's just plenty of shooting modes to choose from. Now, as far as performance goes with the 3.2 megapixel camera in outdoor conditions, it didn't produce the most sharpest looking images out there, and colors were a little bit off as well. Indoors, in low lighting conditions, there's just plenty of noise to be seen, but thankfully, the flash does remedy some of those issues and does brighten up the shot a little bit better. Now, it might not do HD videos, but it has a maximum shooting resolution of 640 by 480, so there's an okay amount of detail, and shoots at a frame rate of 15 frames per second, so it's fairly smooth. Not as good as some high-end smartphones out there, but it'll definitely get the job done. So most people will probably be happy with its quality that it produces. Calling quality on the Samsung Craft is surprisingly good, just because the earpiece produced some decent tones, made it very audible for us to hear our callers. At the same time, there was no background noise or static, and on top of that, voices were clear and distinct. On the flip side, though, our callers did say the same thing about us on their end, so we had no problems conversing whatsoever. When we switched to using the speakerphone, it did produce some decent tones too, not the loudest, but still more than audible, and no muffled tones or static to be heard whatsoever. Unfortunately, signal strength wasn't the best on the Craft. As you can tell right now, we don't have the best coverage right here, but we did experience a few times drop calls during our testing. Battery life is more than satisfactory with the Samsung Craft, just because the manufacturer has it rated for 6 hours of talk time, where in fact we managed to get over 7 hours of talk on a single charge before it completely died out. And on top of that, the handset will definitely last you a solid day of normal usage. So when you look deep down into the Samsung Craft's $299 cost, it does push it to the upper end of the spectrum on MetroPCS's lineup. And at that point, you might want to consider some alternatives, such as smartphones that'll get the job done and also offer a little bit more features. But it's nice that it packs LTE 4G connectivity, the AMOLED panel, WVGA resolution, and of course the landscape sliding keyboard. So it does offer a dose of pretty good features. But in the end, though, since LTE is still in its early stages, you're not going to get the most use out of this handset. And if you're just looking for a quick messaging device, there are some other solutions out there that are a lot cheaper than this one. So if you'd like to learn more about the Samsung Craft or for all the latest cell phone reviews, news specs, and information, you can check us out at PhoneArena.com.